Hello and welcome to the Linker Network. This video is an attempt to take a walk through the most crucial initial elements of the Linker Network to give new employees or volunteers a kickstart to using the various elements of the Linker Network that make an individual organisation a critical part in that larger linked network of services. Let me start by introducing myself. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Damien Cooper, and I am part of the Linker Network core project team, and I'll be taking you through this introduction today. So I guess one of the best places to start is to have a look at the website, and chances are if you're watching this video you've already done that, but if you haven't, I encourage you to begin by jumping on the website and watching the video. The video does a great job of really briefly describing what the Linker Network is all about, and importantly, some of the elements around the experience of vulnerable people and families in our community and the things that we're trying to change through the Linker Network. The video is also a great way if you have other people who you're needing to explain the network to refer them to obviously the website and the video. There are a number of parts to the website, of course, but I would encourage you to also take some time to have a look at the frequently asked questions part of the website. On there, we regularly update new questions as they come through, and hopefully, in the fullness of time, as that list begins to grow, most things that people, or most common questions that people think of, frequently asked questions, will be able to be found there, and of course, the answer that you're looking for. So do check that out and continue to have a look at it. If you have a question that's not answered in the frequently asked questions, please use the contact section of the website to send us through that question, and we'll gladly answer it for you and hopefully for everybody else. The last part of the Linker Network website that's important, particularly for staff of organisations who are part of the network, is the resource page. And the resource page contains digital copies of the various elements or various sections of the playbook. The playbook is, in a sense, the instruction manual or the how-to manual for the various aspects of the Linker Network. You can download these individual sections by themselves, or just note at the bottom here, you can also download the whole thing in one document, or alternatively, you can download just the individual resources that go with each of the different elements. The last thing that I'd say about the resource page is to not miss the fact that these links on the side here will take you to an individual page relating to each of the various elements. So whether it's the common welcome approach or the Linker Network plan, you can navigate to that page, you can read about just that one element of the Linker Network, and of course you can download the individual resources related to that element, and you can watch a short video or more listen to a short video about how to use that individual element. But our goal for today is really to create a starting point and to look at the core parts of the Linker Network just to get you started. So let's have a go at doing that. The playbook is broken into 4 different parts. Section 1 is the sort of introduction and gives us some context around why the Linker Network was established and some of the thinking that's gone into setting it up and the elements within it. Section 2 is really the bit that we're going to be interested in and we'll be looking at now. Section 3 and Section 4, we can save those for later. So let's put those aside and have a look at Section 2. Within Section 2, there are a number of prototyping elements, and we're going to have a look at those all individually. And I'm just going to get straight into it and we'll move through them as we go. So the first one is the common welcome approach. The common welcome approach is about ensuring that the customer experience or the experience for people when they come to you or your service is consistent right across the whole network. We believe that's important because we want to create positive experiences for all of our clients. And when we do that, we know that they're significantly more likely to continue to engage with our service and to engage with ongoing support. And secondly, they're significantly more likely to refer us to a family or a friend. And a big part of what we do is about early intervention. And the sooner we can get people to engage with a service, in other words, if someone says, yeah, that service is great, I definitely recommend them, you should go there, they're more likely to come early, and the earlier they come, the better chance we have of supporting them in a way that's valuable and effective. So the common welcome approach is really about telling services and people within services to say that first point of contact, and not just the one time, but every time they come to your service, it needs to be a positive experience. And the way that we do that, of course, is by making space in our activity, in our routine, when someone walks in, to engage with them in a positive way. A lot of this is, of course, common sense sort of stuff, but thinking about how we would want to be interacted. We want to make eye contact. We want to smile when we see someone, put aside what we're doing. Again, as I say, a lot of this sounds like common sense, but I think often in our work we get sidetracked because things are busy and we have priorities, and sometimes our clients or our customers are not always as friendly. They might be distressed or frustrated by other situations, and as professionals in this sector, what we need to do is make sure that we are meeting that experience with a positive interaction. The other part to the common welcome approach, of course, is that it is common to all of the organisations in the Linker network. And to enable that, we do a few things. One, we have a poster that we display in our service, or where our clients are likely to see it, that talks about we are part of the Linker network. And displaying a poster is quite a passive thing. The proactive thing that we want to do is, of course, describe ourselves in relation to that poster. So I would introduce myself. I am Sam, I'm an XYZ in this organisation, and we're part of the Linker network. We don't want that to become a robotic kind of would you like fries with that routine that rolls off the tongue in a kind of thoughtless way. What we want it to be is a thought-provoking activity in your mind that says, I'm not just one employee within one organisation, but in fact I'm part of a greater network of services. And when I interact with my client, I can think in the context of not just what I have available to me in this organisation, but also what resources are available right throughout the whole network of organisations. So that was the common welcome approach. It's about saying the experience needs to be positive. We need to engage with our clients. We put people before paper, and we are part of a linked network of services. So the next element within the playbook that we want to talk about are the linkers. And the linkers is really kind of underpins the whole Linker network concept, and of course that means that it has the most number of sort of questions or uncertainties. And I'll do my best now to describe what are the important parts of being a linker, and you will be able to apply those relevant to what you do. And applying it to what you do is really critical, because what the Linker network is not trying to do is change what people are already doing. And what I mean by that is to say, if what you do in your current role is XYZ, the Linker network doesn't want you to do XYZ and A and B. Equally so, if what you do in your current role is A and B, the Linker network doesn't want you to do Z, A and B. What it's doing is saying, for everybody across the network who does XYZ, we want you all to do it in the same way. And again, that's because we want to create that consistency of experience for our clients, for vulnerable people in our community, to create a level of quality across the sector that means all of those interactions are positive. And of course, by creating consistency, we reduce the opportunity for confusion, and we reduce the possibility that people fall out of the system because we make mistakes. So we all have the capacity to be linkers, and how we apply the various tools of the Linker network to our own work will depend entirely on what we do. There is in section 1 a bit of a case study, and I'll just quickly find that for you. So there it is there. If you haven't done so, I encourage you to have a read of it. Now, it is a case study that seeks to articulate every element of the Linker network, and in that way, I guess it kind of, in a sense, follows a fairly linear and fairly quite positive kind of experience as we move through the network. And we all know that the vast majority of the work that we do with clients is messy and it's complicated, and people come in at point B and drop out and come back in at point D, and it's typically not a sort of smooth and linear process. But if you can suspend your disbelief for a moment and just read through that narrative, I think it's helpful because, as I say, it seeks to highlight all of the various pieces of the linker network and how they can apply. It doesn't mean to say that every time we interact with a client, it should look like that. It's just a story that sort of picks up on all the pieces. And you might say that these couple of bits really resonate with me in the work that I currently do, and that's what I'm going to apply and use in my work, and that's how I'm going to act as a linker. So let's get into some of the tangible parts of being a linker. So I'll just jump back into my playbook here, and there's a couple of posters and things like that that talk about what a linker is and what a linker is not. But really, I guess key is we're going to start by making referrals, and that is critical to the early intervention prevention, or the TEI, targeted early intervention space that we all work in. So what we want to do is wherever a vulnerable person enters the service system, whether it's a neighbourhood centre or a youth service or whatever it is, that we want to be able to get them to the right service to provide them with the right type of support as quickly and easily as possible. So what we've done is we've created a referral tool, or I guess a system that allows us to make consistent and similar referrals. And there's two little physical bits of paper to allow us to do that. And I should note, at the time of recording this video, we are working on a digital version that will allow people to do that through a web interface. But for now, we're going to stick with paper, good old-fashioned piece of paper. So the client comes in, and as their first point of contact, regardless of what your role is, you have an opportunity to meet their need in terms of being present, understanding what it is that they want, and then working with them to find the best place to go for that. You don't need to do a case plan, you don't need to do an intake or anything like that. This is an immediate short term. This can be done in a couple of minutes. Bearing in mind, we want to put people before paper, so we don't rush to grabbing out our piece of paper and start filling things out. We want to do that common welcome approach, that positive customer experience thing. So what we do is we say, what is it that you were after? How can we help? In this situation, I'm sorry, we're not the best provider for that, but let me work with you to see if we can find someone who can help you with that today. And I'm going to use a very simple example of saying someone was after a food package. Your service doesn't provide a food package, but a service down the road does. So we would jump on the phone, and preferably we'd put them on speakerphone so the customer can listen to what's going on. So it's a three-way conversation, and you ring the other service and you say, I've got someone here, their name's Sam, and they're looking for a food package. Oh, great, you've got them available. Fantastic, I'll send them down right now. Okay, great, thanks. Hang up. We'd fill this out, and it says, you've been referred to this family support service. The person to ask for is James. That's who we just spoke to on the phone. James's phone number is whatever it is. And what's going to happen next is you're going to go to this address. James is going to meet you with a food package, and he's expecting you in the next 15 minutes. And then my name's been Damien, and here's my phone number. And I give this to the client. What's nice about this for the client is that they know what's going to happen next. They know who to call at the other end if something's not right. And if something goes wrong, they know how to get back in touch with you. What's also good in the system is that when someone walks through your door holding one of these, immediately you know, oh, they've been referred here from another service. Straight away, I'm switching my brain on to thinking, I wonder who they've been referred to. Did we receive a referral this morning, etc. So this is a good sort of flag or an indicator to a service provider that someone's been referred to you. The other part of that process, of course, is that we're going to then pass this referral on to the organisation that we were sending to. I won't read it out. It really just covers off on the same stuff. I'm referring Sam to you. The person that I spoke to was James, and James, this is what the client's expecting to happen. How you get this to that other organisation will be entirely dependent on your normal systems. You might choose to scan it and email it. Obviously, if you're in a co-located building, you might go and physically put that on someone's desk. You may take a photo of it with your phone and send it as a text message. However you choose to get it to them, they don't need the physical copy necessarily, they just need to get a copy of the relevant details. And again, we're working on developing a web-based way of doing this. That's not where your responsibility ends as a linker, because what you need to do is follow up with this client. Because one of the principles of being a linker is that we make supported referrals. We hold on to people's hands until someone else picks it up. So in my example, my client's name was Sam, and I think it was Luke or Peter, I can't remember, we'll say it's Luke. Luke was the worker at the other organisation. Until I know that Sam has connected with Luke and got what he or she, Sam, needs, then my role as the referring linker hasn't ended. So what I need to do is I need to make a follow-up with the client, not with the person I referred them to, with the client. And so if it was in this example where they're walking down the road, I might wait half an hour and then I would ring and say, "Hi, it's Damien here. Did you meet Luke? Did you get the food package?" And they say, "Yes, I did." Great. Job done. Finished. On to whatever else it is that you're doing. If that person answered the phone and said, "Nah, couldn't find it and I got bored and I went and did something else," then you have an opportunity to make sure that that person doesn't miss out on the support service that they need at that time by re-engaging them, saying, "Look, can I make another time for you to meet Luke, or would you like to come back here and we'll walk down there together?" And that's essentially what we're seeking to do. I mean, in that example of 15-minute walk, it's unlikely that they're going to get sidetracked, but perhaps a more meaningful example might be to say if you'd made an appointment for a client to get some counselling, now they might need to wait a couple of weeks to attend that appointment. You make a follow-up call in 2 weeks' time saying, did you make it to that appointment? How did it go? Now, if they say, "Yes, it was great, and I've made a follow-up appointment, I'm all good," terrific. They might say, "Something came up on the day and I didn't make it to that appointment." And you say, did you ring and make a follow-up appointment?" "Oh, no, I was so I didn't even call. I didn't even tell them I wasn't coming. I just did a no-show and I was too embarrassed to show up or call them." At that point, we would typically lose that person. They would descend further into crisis. And the next time that we would see them, it would be a more critical situation and harder to provide the kind of support that's going to be effective. So then we can say, "Well, look, would you like me to make another appointment for you? Or there is another counsellor. You don't need to be embarrassed. We can find you another counsellor to see." So that's an example of where this linker role, whose responsibility it is to follow up with that client until they acknowledge that they've got the support that they need, is different to how we're doing it now. Well, I should say some organisations may well already be doing that, but what we're trying to create here is consistency. One last point on that is to say that it might be that you call and they don't answer. In fact, that might be quite a common scenario. And one of the questions is, well, how many times do I call? Does the linker network say I have to keep calling forever until I reach that person? And the answer, of course, is no, that we want to treat people like people. And if you leave a message and then a second message and they choose not to call, they choose not to engage, really you can use your own judgment about where and when is the right time to say, "I've made a proactive step to keep that person within our supports," and ultimately they may choose to not continue that for whatever reason. So there's a judgment call there, but the thing is about saying we're going to make that proactive step. Okay, so what we've talked about here is that referral process, and as a linker, that might be all you do. All you do might be make these referrals within the linker network, or indeed to other organisations outside of the linker network, and do that little bit of follow-up work. You may well ask, okay, that's great, but what about if I don't know who to refer to? How is the linker network helping me with that? And the way that we are supporting the network, and I've got a few pieces of paper floating around here, so let me find the right one. If I jump back in here, one of the ways that we're supporting the network to do that is we're trialling a tool called Slack. And it's an unfortunate name, I agree. I think it's about taking up the slack rather than being a slacker. But it is a web-based tool, and you can have it either on your phone or on your desktop computer. And what it does is it creates, in a sense, like a chat room, a space where all of the linkers in a given linker network can communicate with one another. In fact, I've got a picture of what that looks like here. And I don't expect you to be able to read it fully, but you can kind of see down the side here, there's a whole bunch of names of people, so you can message that person directly if you happen to know them and you know what it is that you're looking for. But indeed, there's other what they call channels, which are topic-based. So if you were looking for a referral that related to young people, there's a section for youth, and you could pose a question in there without naming clients. It's not a secure confidential space. So it's purely to say, hey, does anyone know where I can get some drug and alcohol counselling for a young person? And your service may not be youth specific, but what this will immediately do is give you access to a whole bunch of people in your linker network who do have specialist knowledge about young people, and experience will tell us that in a shorter space of time, someone will come back to you and go, oh yes, did you know that such and such is a specialist drug and alcohol counsellor for young people? Here's their contact details. So that would be a way to expand your referral network in a low cost and effective way. I will do a separate video tutorial on using Slack because just getting your name on there may not be enough. You may need some additional support in how to interact with that and how to use it. So I'll do that. Keep an eye out for a new video coming soon. Okay, so someone's come through your door. They need a referral to another organisation. You've quickly used Slack to find the right person. You've given them a call. You've made a referral using the referral tool. The next part of the linker process is really when you have an ongoing relationship with that client. And not everyone will do that. And again, this is where I stress that this is about what you currently do and giving you some tools to support your current work, not an expectation that you do things differently, or if you're a general front desk referral role that you start doing sort of case management. That's not it at all. But let's move on to a scenario where for whatever reason, whether it is core part of your role or because you have developed a ongoing kind of connection with a client, they continue to return you resonate with them. And this is important for the linker network because we say that it's relationship based, and where the client says, hey, you get me and I want you to support me in my process through accessing community services, accessing support, we want to allow that to happen. We don't want to artificially break that because my organisation's X and your needs are Y. So what we would do at that point, and again, I really want to say it's people before paper. So if you, in your mind, start thinking, I'm going to use a linker network plan, what you don't want to do is sit down immediately with that person and start filling out a plan. A plan is something that you would do at the time that kind of felt organic and right. Well, that's a bit strange, but if you find this page in the linker network playbook and have a read of that, that talks about, I guess, when is the right time or where the plan fits into an ongoing kind of support relationship with a client. There's also some detailed information in the playbook about how to use the plan and what kind of questions you would use to prompt and work your way through a plan with a client. But I guess if we just have a look at it together here, here's a copy here. It should be printed double-sided like that. So in effect, it's a one-page plan, although we're a bit cheeky because we're using both sides of the one page. The plan is different to an intake form or a care plan or whatever other existing kind of clinical mechanism you might use in an organisation. And how it's different is that the linker network plan is authored by the client. Now, whether they hold the pen themselves or whether you do it with them and you write it down, it's about the client articulating in their own words where they are at the moment, where they want to be, and how they're going to get there and what kind of supports they need to get there. And you don't want them to do it on their own, but the critical bit here is that it's their plan, it belongs to them, and it's in their own voice. Because what we want them to do is have some agency, some control, and some understanding about where they want to be and importantly, what supports are available to them. I should say here too that who will support me, again, this is an opportunity as a linker to think, well, it's not just about which options I have within my own organisation that I can refer them to, but in fact, who else in the whole linker network can play a role in helping my client achieve the goals that they want to achieve for themselves. There is a spot on the form here about consent, and we have provided a linker network, how we use your information and consent to share information. So that's available in there. Again, we're looking for that consistency. So when we see one of these, we know what it means. If it's been signed by a client, we understand what it means in the context of the linker network. That means the client doesn't have to keep repeating themselves. The other thing is that when someone shows up with one of these, like I say, again, it's a trigger. You immediately know what it is. It has some meaning for you. You know what and how to read this document in as short as possible space of time. You can develop a deeper understanding of where a new client is at and where they want to be, rather than starting that process from scratch and having them to retell their entire story. The other part on the back here, it talks about my preferred linker. And so this is where we're a bit deeper now than just that linker referral part. We're actually saying that I'm a linker, I'm connected to you because we have that kind of positive contact. Now, if a client says, oh, what is that? Like, I've seen the logo, heard that mentioned. We've got a little form here that you can use for that. So your linker is Damien, and here's my contact details. And there's a nice little description on the back here about what the linker role is. And it talks about how the linker is the conduit between you as the client and the different service network. And I think a good way to describe that most people would understand is by saying, like a GP, a doctor, they understand who all of the specialists are in the medical system. When you go to see your GP, you don't need to read up on who an oncologist is and all of those different things. The GP is there to sort of recognise and help you understand what your needs are. And then if you have some specialist needs, they then, of course, help you by referring you on to those people. But typically, you keep coming back to your GP, and sometimes they're the person that you need to talk to again to understand the results from your specialist or whatever it might be. Hello again. So sorry about that brief interruption. I'm not sure what that's going to look like at your end, but anyway. So where were we? We were really just having a look at the linker network plan. We were talking about the difference between the plan and an intake form or a care plan or something like that. I was going to say that the last bit, the bit here was on the back about like identifying who your linker was, and we had something for that. And how long you are someone's linker is not indefinite. This is one of the concerns that's come up. So if you are at this point and this person said, you're the one that gets me, we have some history together, you understand my background and my needs, and I trust and I respect your advice like a good GP, how long does that continue? And the answer is, in a relationship-based or a client-centered model, that it lasts for as long as that client wants it to. In a sense, as long as it's valuable and meaningful for that client. And I guess the point to articulate there is to say that it's not forever. So the client may move on to another service and develop a relationship or a connection with another support worker, and they may then at that time choose to change who their linker is, or indeed you change jobs. So it's not for life. And of course, at that time, if you were changing jobs as you normally would, you would contact those people who your clients, and you'd say, listen, I'm leaving the area for whatever reason. I'm not going to be in a position to continue being your linker. This is the person that's replacing me, or shall we have a conversation about who else is in the system that you would like to fill that role of a linker. Now, not everyone needs to have a linker in the same way that not everyone has a family GP that they continually go back to. Some of us are happy just going to whatever person is available at the time. So you don't feel like you have to fill out that who the linker is. And again, it's driven by the client. The other thing I'll say, and again, a common question that comes up is being someone's linker doesn't make you their servant at the drop of a hat and available for them 24 hours, 7 days a week. It's really about saying, when you are available in the normal context of your role, whatever your role may be, that you are a reliable and continual point of access for that person into the system. It certainly doesn't mean, and the linker network is certainly not saying that as a linker you need to give out your number and answer your phone at 9 o'clock on a Friday night or whatever it is. So just a couple of little points of clarification there. The last part I just articulate is about the plan. And here it has my achievements. And our thinking there is to say that sometimes the clients that we work with them over a long period of time, and it can sometimes feel like we only ever get a little bit past kind of crisis, and then we drop back into crisis, and there's this sort of cyclic sort of process of continually working with people, and things never improve or get better. And what we wanted to do was try and create an opportunity to capture some of the highlights, some of the things that we have actually achieved in our time together. And it might be about referring to, where do I want to be? And it can be helpful to go, well, maybe I feel like things haven't improved for me. But when I look back here, I go, well, I wanted to get my driver's license and I did do that. And, I wanted to see some more of my children. And in fact, if I think about it, I am seeing more of them. So that's a good thing. I'll write that on there. Or I completed this course in XYZ. So that's just an opportunity, I guess, a self-reflection opportunity for you as a worker, and also for the client to sort of say things aren't static. We are moving forward. And maybe an opportunity to go, well, are we moving forward enough? Or do we need to be doing some different things, or do need to be doing some different supports? So, jumping back into our playbook, we've had a look at our common welcome approach and what it means to be a linker and some of the different elements of being a linker in there. The linker network plan, we've had a look at that. We're not all going to be using that, but if we see one, we know what it means. It's something that is owned by the client. The last one in here is coordinated family support. And you might choose to rename that and call it coordinated client support. But what it says is that at any point where you, as a linker, identify that there's more than one organisation or agency working with your client, that you now have the responsibility to investigate whether there's an opportunity to collaborate with that other service or organisation. The current situation is that no one has that responsibility, or it's not identified anywhere, and there's a natural tendency to just assume that someone else will do that, or someone else will ask that question, or indeed assume that it'll never happen and it's not important. But it is important, and it's not to say that in every situation where there's one or where there's more than one organisation or agency working with a client or a family, that there are opportunities for coordination or collaboration, but let's at least ask that question. So if you jump into your playbook and find that section, what you'll find is a guide here about coordinated family support. It's a 7-step process, which sounds like a lot, and you can have a read of them yourself. But really, if you have a look at that, all it is says phone the other organisation and ask them, is there a way that we can work together to get a better outcome for this family? If not, no problem, but let's at least initiate that process and have a conversation. We've articulated in a little bit more detail than that, and if that's helpful for you, follow those steps, as you go through them. But really, the takeaway message here is to say, if you're talking with your client and they disclose that they're working with someone else, they're getting counselling somewhere else, whatever it might be, you need to use whatever normal consent to share information systems or processes, policies that your organisation has, together in conjunction with the linker network one. And if the client consents, say, well, I'm going to give them a call and I'm going to find out if there's a way that we can work more collaboratively together to get a better outcome for you as a client, so that you don't have 3 or 4 or 5 different people all doing different things, and the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. So that's actually it. We've got common welcome approach. We've got acting like a linker and using a shared referral tool. We've got some tools to help us talk to each other and find better ways to refer. We've got a plan that our clients can use to articulate and understand their own needs, All of these things build on and help us develop a sense of being a linked network. So we're not individuals in one organisation, and organisations aren't operating in silos. Where we are working literally together with the same client, we have some mechanisms to ensure that that's happening in a more effective way. Now, right now in the Linker Network, all of these things are really just assumptions. They're, I think, well-informed and well-thought-through assumptions, but ultimately, we haven't tested them in the real world and we don't know how well they're going to work. Or maybe another way to say that is that we have thought of them quite well in certain contexts, but not all contexts. And what we're trying to do is learn here. So a good example there would be to say the referral piece of paper is great if you're sitting at the front desk of a service and you're filling it out. But what if someone phones? How do I get this to that client if they've called through on the phone? Or indeed, if I'm out doing an engagement activity, some kind of community engagement barbecue or a supported play group, how do I use those tools? So we as the Linker Network project management team, we have some learning to do and we need you to be involved in that learning. And I guess there's three mechanisms to allow us to do that. One is client feedback. And what you'll have access to is a client feedback form. And I'll immediately acknowledge that it is not the world's most user-friendly form, and that may well form part of your initial feedback to us. However, this is our starting point, and we're ready to make some changes and make that a better process with your feedback and input. But to start with, where possible, where you can, we would invite you to use this to get some direct client feedback. We've also provided most of you, I think, with a client feedback box where clients can put that feedback. If you don't have one of these and you'd like one, let me know. That's clients. Probably more likely is that we're going to get some feedback from you as workers. And so in the playbook, there's two bits to that. So there is the worker feedback fortnightly survey. It's once a fortnight. I've done it a number of times and it's never taken me more than 15 minutes. So I think that's a reasonable amount of time. And it just asks you, it basically says, did you use this? How did that go? Was it good? Was it bad? What could we change? Did you use the client consent form? Was it good? Was it bad? Of course, if you haven't used it, you just say no. Easy peasy. So that's quite purposeful fortnightly. That all gets collated and we'll use all of that information to inform how we update some of these tools and resources. The other bit, and I like this one, is a quick thoughts survey. The link's there. You can find it on the website, or you can type it out. You might want to bookmark it or make it a favorite in your browser. And that is really one question, or in a sense, a better way. It's not even a question. It's just saying if you've had an aha moment where you did something with a client and it went well or it went poorly, that's a space where you can not have to wait until the end of the fortnight, but just quickly make a note of something and drop it into the system and in a sense forget about it, because once you've logged it in there, we'll get it and we'll respond accordingly and put that in with all of the other information feedback and really help shape our understanding of how well the Linker Network is meeting our expectations and the needs of our clients in the community. So that's about it. As I said, there are two other sections. There's section 3. Section 3 really is more at the organisational level. So this is more targeted at management committees, boards, managers, and the decisions that they make within their organisations. And if that relates to you and your role, I'll certainly be looking forward to myself or someone else from the Linker Network core team will be making contact with you and talking about that soon. The last section, section 4, is just about the various tools and materials and how to use them. So that's it for me and for today. Thank you for making the time to watch this. I hope it has enriched or deepened your understanding of the Linker Network and the various tools and how they relate to one another. To finish up, I'll say the Linker Network is, as it says, a linked network. We're about changing the way we think, so we start operating as a linked network of services that all have a shared vision, which is about providing support to vulnerable people in our community. It's about giving people the tools to make that process easier, and it's about ensuring that the experience for our clients is positive, so they're more likely to engage with those supports, and particularly at the right time. This should be enough to get you started. There is a day of training that goes into depth in all of this. It's intended that you start applying these tools, start using them, start having a play with them within your organisation, within your role. There may already be people in your organisation that are doing this. Draw on their knowledge. But from day one, that might be today, start using them, start having a play, start getting a sense of how it all fits together. Then book in and come to the training. And at that training, we will talk about your experience of using them and really start diving deeper into some role playing and teasing out some of those common areas where maybe things don't fit quite so well, or where we say this part of the link network's great, but in this context it doesn't work. And what can we learn from each other to try and make that system work even better?